All right, since this is like my last day or two in Tennessee, I'm going back to Florida. I said I wasn't going to do any videos, but I did realize that the WebBot report, which are going back to the Alta report format, has just been released. It's basically for August, but it's an August report, even though we're at the end of July. He just released it a tiny bit early. So I, as I always do, will give you a summary. And what better way to go out with a bang from Tennessee back down to Florida by doing a nice little WebBot summary. And as I always say, I decide what I want to read out of it. I can't copyright or plagiarize the whole thing, obviously. So I pick sections and pieces and summarize it and write up my little summarization in a Word document, and then I read it. This particular report is 37 pages, it looks like. In my summary, let's see here. It's about 4.5 pages or so. I've left things out that you may want me to read. You may think certain things in here were more important than I did that you would like to hear. Again, I can't do it. I'm choosing what I choose for whatever reasons. I guess I do this. By all means, go to halfpasthuman.com and buy the report yourself and read the whole thing if you want. I'm doing a summary. And as I started to read it, I said, man, this is pretty interesting. I need to go ahead and do a WebBot report summary like right now, tonight, before I leave. So at the same time, I've said this a million times, you'll hear dates, summer 2013, winter 2014, whatever. Take the dates with a grain of salt. I have come on here and done numerous update videos on WebBot hits that it got right. Unfortunately, the time was wrong, sometimes quite wrong, but the event was spectacularly right. That's why I always say, who cares about the time frame? You know this is coming in the near future, and when I read this to you, it's going to make a lot of sense. You'll be like, yep, I bet so, yep. As I read the paragraphs, I may jump into something where you think I'm still talking about the same thing, but it was 7 pages down and I'm starting something new. I'm not going to tell you when that happens. I just read it. Here we go. He says that this report had been delayed on purpose, waiting the manifestation of 2 precursor events or temporal markers. Both have appeared. Therefore, he feels like now he should go ahead and release the report. The most significant of those 2 markers is the recent shift in the planetary bond market. This shift signals the end of the monopolistic control of information. This shift signs the reduction in force order for out-of-control central government. This shift sinks the 2 political party control of the ship of state. This shift poisons the environment of the banksters and sends them scurrying for exits that do not exist. This shift stops the financing of their prison planet. This shift coincides with generational changes in both global social order and the planet under our feet. Next, solar system. More immediate forecasts include changes in the length of the year. He went on to mention about the north, something was off like 1.5 degrees. I left that out, I just remember it. But then he says the length of the year will be slightly noticeable, I guess, apparently coming soon, and people will start questioning that. And apparently academia is going to struggle to explain this one. And further, the orbital parameters of all the planets are indicated to be changed such that government will feel the impacts. Next paragraph. The oscillation of the climate change of planets' crustal expansion is forecast as producing a serious or severe winter northern hemisphere. The data sets are suggesting that crippling cold will be the rule more than the exception. As model space has progressed into fall of northern hemisphere, the accretion patterns cluster around geographic references to many mountain areas. These areas are described as being in the path of triplets of damaging weather. The data sets show that torrents/rivers of rain will once again be impacting mountains and in turn producing lahars/mudslides. In conjunction with planetary stuff and outer space stuff, we move on to solar winds are indicated to surround/encase the planet or planets. This, in its turn, is forecast as inducing planetary magnetosphere/electrosphere changes. These changes are going to include sporadic inability to generate electrical currents on Earth. This is described as being due to highly erratic voltage and amperage static electrical currents that are described as ghosting/shadowing/hovering over the planet's surface. Some of the symptomatic effects of the ghosting static charges include hectares or acres of dead insects, as well as animals/livestock and humans who will be electrocuted to some degree, including to fatality. Further, problems are associated with VITA services/infrastructure such as water and sewage and transportation. He says, additional note, quite a number of 60% plus of the transportation subsets are indicating problems with pumping with the side note of electrical malfunction. So problems with pumping, I'm assuming that could be waste management, water, whatever. In some of the more extreme cases, which are commonly geographically linked to near equatorial and tropical settings, the effects of the solar wind stream are described as extreme to the extent that gleaming cities are abandoned and multiple miles long snakes, if you will, of abandoned vehicles are able to be viewed from space. Many of these gleaming cities are described as being within or near to the leading edge of the equatorial bulge, which the data describes as expanding. Most have desert features also in common and are described as hovering between life and death due to electrical current, such that when the currents cannot flow, the people must go. Did I say I was moving back down to Florida? Yes, I am. There's no desert climate in Florida, so maybe I'll not experience that. And even if I do, old Jason at 4 has his food and water preparations taken care of for a significant amount of time. Let's see. There will be a form of an all-natural EMP, electromagnetic pulse, that will, and it says natural, that will result from overcharging/overturning of the voltage of the capacitant layers of the upper atmosphere, far upper atmosphere, such that the holes in the magnetosphere, which I'm sure you've heard of already, have already been noticed, will allow for spots of EMP damage to come through. The EMP damage is being described as dead electronics, so that would be frying of electronics, in falling airplanes of all sizes that depend on electrical components, and drifting ships, and failed railways, and dead trucks, buses, and cars, and misbehaving electrical appliances. The data sets are painting a rather dire picture for nuclear power, with dozens of separate incidents of plant failure and radiation leakage. Plant failure meaning like nuclear plant. The data indicates that in several of these breakdowns, and he says an additional note, solar induced ? The data indicates that in several of these breakdowns, the radiation leakage will prompt or induce both voluntary panic and mandatory evacuations. Onto a section under finance. As the interest rate dam has broken, and he says this has been forecast in the breakdowns, word sets of the IDR reports, which I've been keeping you up to date with since, he says, February 2013, and I do recall hearing about the interest rate spikes coming. He says the linguistic sets are forecasting that a group/collection/bag of weeks will emerge in which rates are burning up/on fire, and that this is in its turn associated with a state of roasting and toasting of the banks. As model space is progressed. Now, when I say that word, as model space is progressed, figure it this way. We're looking at a timeline, and the timeline's a Webbot report. And as he looks at the data on the left side and goes to the right side, we're going into the future. That's model space progressing. Just want to keep you up to date in case you don't know what the heck I'm talking about. As model space is progressed forward into fall in the northern hemisphere, the data sets begin, let's say, after September equinox or so. And again, the timing, be thankful and lucky if it's not this particular year. Sometimes it's spot on, sometimes it's not. So sometime after the September equinox, the data sets begin to accrue increasing subsets for yet more fires in strategic paper storage/media vaults. The data sets acquired in support at the primary level include many sets that either directly hold or cover up/fraud/crime or similar linguistic sets, or are cross-linked back over to another area internally in the markets entity, or to another entity, which is entities are data set, pieces of the data that he's talking about, that may not be together. You have the markets data, there's some entities in there. You have the earth changes entities over here. You have, you know what I mean? That's what he's talking about. So I don't want that to throw you off. Let me just start over for a second on that. So there's going to be these more fires to come in strategic paper storage/media vaults. The data sets acquired in support at the primary level include many sets that either directly hold cover up/fraud/crime or similar linguistic sets, or are cross-linked back over to another area internally in the markets entity, or to another entity in which the termination values also include some references to criminality or crimes in progress. This is a very interesting data set in that it contains a descriptor set going to the idea of a Watergate type style episode in which burglars/arsonists/mercenaries are caught in the act by local security personnel. Further, it seems the data is suggesting that somehow a local or national media personality is also involved with the capture of the cat burglars/arsonists. Also note that subsequent to the capture and media revealing of the cat burglar plot, a series of revelations are indicated to surface, which sends several, 3 to 11, officialdom members of the feminine gender into spasms that will be on video in HD for all people to see. At some point in August, maybe September, he says, in which interest rates on bonds will escape from control and the interest rates will shift such that sales of bonds will be attempted to be sold while new issue sales are tanking. The data sets are indicating that waves of insolvent banks and announcements of that will crash against the public understanding. Note that the German elections will be a free-for-all/chaotic in ways that the pundits will not see ahead of time. So the result of these elections will be pivotal in the shift of ages. The data sets indicate that a follow-on/result of the repercussions of Germanic political upheaval will affect the euro and the EU at its primary plank of stability. The financial system turmoil indicated to impact the precious metals markets, and he says additional note starting about August 9th or so, with precursor shifts. So the additional note is, again, dates. Don't give me crap about the dates. I've seen this thing hit way too many times. Just not on the date it said. But to give an exact example of amazing, something to look for and then it happens, just not when it does, with amazing detail, I will allow this thing to slide sometimes and not give the exact date and say, hey, it was a year or two off, which is good because the more time you can buy to prepare for this crap, the better. Let me start over here. The data accretion pattern suggests that let me back up. The financial system turmoil is indicated to impact the precious metals market around August 9th or so, as the lies that the minion propagandists have been layering on or painting over the market for decades are blown away by the unexpected political results. Additional note, likely the German elections taking this on or making this come about. And I can only assume does something go in those elections that say, hey, if I win and I'm the party for the people, immediately I will be requesting the gold from the Federal Reserve vaults in which they said we would get it back in the year 2020. Maybe that could spark something like this. Just gonna throw that out there. It doesn't say that. The data accretion pattern suggests that as the bad words about yet another bankster crime are coming unraveled this fall, Northern Hemisphere, the officialdom, likely here in North America, will decide to charge what will be described as a simple fee. This fee is indicated by the data to be the label for a bail-in / confiscation of citizen wealth. The rationale behind the propaganda is, why should officialdom pay for FDIC coverage? Let the user pay the simple fee. This barely clothed bail-in may, that is just may, be a proximate cause for subsequent massive interest in Federal Reserve note alternatives. Bitcoin, precious metals, for sure. I'll put my money in precious metals before I put even a penny into Bitcoin. I'm not going to digital fiat currency, backed by nothing, but digital waves. No thanks. I'll take something hard. Because again, if the power goes out in places and stuff, I'd rather have silver coins in my hand than tell someone on paper, I've got some Bitcoins in my online account. Will you take those when the power comes back on? No. Hold the spring from the fallout of an upcoming... I kind of cut this one off somehow. Hold / spring from the fallout of an upcoming by September 2013 such and such group of financial disasters. So basically this is a section about, he said something by like October 8th, September 23rd, or October 18th, I think. Late September, October, whatever. Group of financial disasters described as overwhelming / topping over the local household budget of people, food / home, energy prices, etc. It doesn't say homes, it says food / home energy prices. The shock of the corruption revealed is indicated to enrage women in general, wives in particular, such that local collectives quickly transform into first national, then international movement / revolt against corruption in finance and politics. With the accretion patterns in the data, the Chinese and Japanese and Australian geographic references are more dominant in that respect than other nationalities. However, the movement is clearly being shown as an international wave of rapid growth that will overturn, disrupt, upend the political order in several nation states. As a central component to the wives' revolt, keyword, crosslinks reveal that power is shifting to those who have in hand gold, precious metals. Interesting. This shift is part of the hyperinflation that triggers the wives' beating of banksters and other forms of violent protests by women / householders in USA, England, Scotland, Ireland, Denmark, and on and on and on. The background emotional sum of these sets around the severity of the steep climb in precious metals prices and food prices and energy prices is so high as to have reached our maximum emotive sums for both duration and impact values. Let me read that last one again. The background emotional sum, and this is talking WebBot, when he gives a sum or a number of a keyword or a topic that's in the WebBot, his report, the software, is giving him those numbers. The higher the number, the more important or the more powerful that particular set it could potentially be. A set with a lower number could be, well, it's not as bad as we thought, or it wasn't, data was using words like crazy high stock market, but the emotional values didn't support that. The numbers were low. So the outcome would be that it wasn't as bad as you thought. Whereas a high number would mean there's a lot of support there, a lot of that keyword, from where they pull the data from. It's probably going to be pretty significant. Okay, so that's what that means. The wives' revolution sets, the background emotional sum of the sets around the severity of the steep climb in precious metals prices and food and energy is so high as to have reached our maximum, can't go any higher, emotive sums for both duration and impact values. Again, that number is assigned to the data, this particular set of the data, or that particular keyword. The wives revolution sets, data sets, are cross-linked over to bespoke casual sets that include sudden abject poverty, as pension funds are liquefying overnight and national budgets explode globally. It is within these sets that we get some indications of what will be seen as horrific rises in prices for energy, foods, and precious metals, as well as a few other commodities. Now, this is interesting because the pension funds are explicitly mentioned. And here I am looking at what's happening in Detroit. And they've got like 92 billion. Detroit alone has $1/10 trillion in unfunded liabilities in the pension system. Man, my nose is itching. That's just Detroit. I did a video a while back. I've done it twice actually because it was so good that I feel like every time I get 1,000 or 2,000 new subscribers, it's time to redo it again. And I will do it again sometime in the near future, but it is about the Roman Empire, how they had the pension system 2,000 years ago. You become a soldier, you get 20 years put in your time, you get a pension the rest of your life. And the very first soldiers to get it seemed like, okay, this is working. And that's about usually where it stops and the problems start. Now they've got to pay for their pensions, plus the new guys who are going to be working for their 20 years. And then you've got 2 sets of people getting pensions. Then the third set comes in. 60 years down the road, there's 3 sets of people needing pensions. It destroyed the Roman Empire. It was one of the sole causes of the reason why Rome had to expand in war with other countries and loot and plunder gold and everything else they can get their hands on, and still could not keep up with their unfunded liabilities, aka pensions. Keep that in mind, because coming to a planet, and especially a country called America, near you in the near future, your pensions are gone. And I did a parody also a while back about these New York cops that were manhandling the Occupy Wall Street protesters, and JP Morgan gave them like $5 million to the cops, a little donation. And I did a little pension song because their pension's going to go bye-bye too when all this happens. It's actually kind of a funny. It was a Journey song. We just look up Jason at 4 pension, the pension song, something. Back on topic here. Further indications are that many battles will be viewed on video as the officialdom and police, or what you could call policy enforcement for rich bankers, are beaten back in several fierce street battles. In one instance, an ambush of police or private military / security, whatever, what he's calling policy enforcer mercenaries, will be viral and live as the Policy Enforcement Mercenary Corporation is soundly beaten. Additional note, including the loss of at least 2 helicopters in a rather spectacular crash, or crashes. Note to the observant of the novel, an unique approach to denying air cover that will emerge from this skirmish. Coming as a shock to many of the political classes in the EU and globally, the data sets are pointing toward a failure of banking proceedings due to protestations by citizenry. The descriptor sets appear to be describing a closed-door, high-level government involved, and he says Ireland, Spain, Cyprus, France, meeting in which the banksters are intent on making their case for yet more bail-ins, stealing the citizens' account money in their bank accounts like they did in Cyprus. This meeting is described as being interrupted and held hostage by the appearance of thousands of protesting citizens who will barricade the building with their bodies. The spark and the subsequent planetary paper assets fire is the direct cause of the woman/wives rebellion. The sparking of the paper fire data sets are also replete with references to gold, silver, Bitcoin, platinum, tin, oil, fuels, and other commodities that will suddenly be propelled into the public consciousness as prices rise to levels that are described by sets headed by unbelievable, beyond understanding, unable to grasp, and other similar language. So that deserves a second reading. The spark and the subsequent planetary paper asset fire is the direct cause of the woman/wives rebellion. The sparking of the paper fire datasets are also replete with references to gold, silver, Bitcoin, platinum, tin, oil, fuels, other commodities that will suddenly be propelled into the public consciousness as prices rise to levels that are described by datasets headed with words such as unbelievable, beyond understanding, unable to grasp, and other similar language. It is very interesting that Bitcoin is in fact in there. But again, gold and silver is also in there. Would you rather have a Bitcoin and a hacker attack, the North Koreans, it was the Iranians attacked the U.S. banking system and all the Bitcoin, all that, somehow got lost, and, at the same time, maybe that won't happen. Maybe, just maybe, Bitcoin will be the new age gold and silver for people who don't understand what real gold and silver is all about. Therefore, you will have those of us who do understand what real gold and silver is about, stockpiling it like we have been and amassing a significant amount of wealth in doing so when the prices rise to levels that are beyond understanding, unable to grasp, and unbelievably high. And we'll be happy, while other people who decide to play the digital game decide to go with Bitcoin and do things with Bitcoin. I thought very recently about Bitcoin mining, not going out and buying Bitcoins, but just Bitcoin mining. And if you want to know what that is, I'm not going to get into it right now, but you can mine Bitcoins, and when you are successful at mining them, you actually receive Bitcoins for the successful mining of them, cracking the code, so to speak, and now a new set of 25 Bitcoins are out on the market. Go look up Bitcoin mining to get a better understanding. I thought about doing that because you can do it with computer hardware. Now they've got these new devices called ASICs that are unbelievable processing powerhouses that can crack the code way faster than ever before. But it seems like as soon as a new one comes out, there's already a more powerful one in the wings. Anyways, you can choose whatever you want. I have personally been 100% invested in silver. I used to have some gold, and I got out of gold completely to go to silver because silver was manipulated downward in price the most, worse than gold. Therefore, silver will react and bounce back up better than gold will bounce back up when the time comes. So if you had $1,000 in gold and $1,000 in silver, when all this happens, your $1,000 in silver will make you more money. You will still be very happy with your gold. You'll just be way happier with silver. Back on track here. New linguistics. Whoops, I just hit the wrong button there. Hang on. New linguistic structures under politics show that breakdown will occur in a few states at a level of financial/funding, that's hard to believe, that will produce some strange bedfellows. In some specific instances, we have OBG, which he's calling outlaw biker gangs, who will team up, providing presents to disabled veterans and homeless and the housewives/homemakers in the protest against the financial raping of all of us. This particular instance has descriptors for a confrontation in which the military/police or policy enforcers/mercenaries, is not using the word police, policy enforcers/mercenaries in the in the employ of the powers that be will be defeated in a bloody battle. So the policy enforcers slash military slash whoever that are, again, they're for the powers that be, will actually be defeated in a bloody battle. And he says, additional note, look for this to be labeled with the place name. In other words, like the 4 dead in Ohio or the Kent State Massacre, there will be like a name like that. However, the results forecast from this crowded death by corporate mercenaries on U.S. soil is going to be truly shocking to both populace and the powers that be. Further, a single spark lost in this incident is forecast to bring down slash destroy the CFR, which is the Council on Foreign Relations, here in the USA. Though not immediately understood, the CFR connections will emerge within a week or so of the blood on the asphalt event, which is the one I just told you about, and then things turn hard for the self-proclaimed ruling elites. It is at this point that the forecast from past Webbot reports, Alta reports, of mob violence against banksters, politicians, elites, etc. starts to emerge. I'm almost done, by the way. It's the last piece here. The data sets indicate that new crimes will be declared by the ruling corporate dictators that will include inciting violence against your betters electronically. This particularly new crime is described in a very complex fashion, apparently by declaring tweeting of elite slash celebrity sightings will be a crime. That way, if you're tweeting, oh, guess who's over here, in case anyone wants to come beat their ass, that's going to be a crime. Just by saying, tweeting, hey, all you occupiers, guess who's over here? You know, Ben Bernanke's over here at such and such eating a Subway sandwich. They're going to try to make that unlawful. So that'll be like a crime. The powers that be will unwittingly point out a key vulnerability to the revolutionaries, though. Then the rebels, as they will be called, will be promoting tagging games in which social points slash street credibility is acquired by sighting slash spotting the target. So you kind of get notoriety, a little credit, like a little rating. Kind of like the credit rating agencies from all the big banks. You know, your credit ratings high, we'll loan you money. You know, this is like a tagging game where you get a rating by other people by how many times you successfully pointed out where one of the elitists were. You get like points for that. It's kind of neat. Linguistics suggest a new wave of shattered understandings that will come from the crimes labeled scandals. As model spaces move through September and into the fall northern hemisphere, the data accretion patterns suddenly shift into large gains for local lawful rebellion under the larger set of global revolution. These data sets gain new supporting sets from aspects as tributes that go to local, and he says maybe state level, not sure, counties, revelations about a judge slash governor who will lead to a lynching, and he says actually, question mark, an actual lynching, not sure, of a lobbyist slash corrupter from Monsanto, he's calling it Monsanto. This in turn leads to some scrambled signals, TV station, radio, question mark, he doesn't know, that will set fire slash spark a local lawful rebellion. Now, that was the end of my report, but I want to add one last thing that I remember reading in the report, and that is law enforcement. Some of them will be betrayed. Some of them will lose their jobs. Some of them will be asked to do things that they know are unlawful, and quite a few of them will actually rebel. Quite a few of them will actually not do what the other ones are going to do, knowing that it's unlawful. Some will join the ranks of the people even. But again, I don't see this happening like this year or even next year. I think we're still out. You know, we're some ways out, I think. And again, I hope we are, because that's just longer you and I have to prepare, buy some more stored, dehydrated foods, that kind of stuff. Get your water filter or whatever. That, you never know. If the electricity goes out, like in the beginning of this report, you're going to need to purify some water in a hurry. Again, gold and silver, you have things to barter with. If electricity went out, you can't go to a bank and even get paper money out. It's not going to happen. But if you have gold or silver in your hand, that is recognizable by pretty much everybody. at least that it's gold or silver. I mean, I got this thing here that came actually from some folks from Pastor Dow. A little shout out to you guys. Appreciate you giving me this. They just wanted to give it to me. Little silver eagle here. Much love to you. Got it sitting here on standby for purposes such as this, where I can just grab it and show people. But things are going to be very interesting, to say the least, here. I remember some of the older Web Art reports from years ago talking in depth about this kind of stuff. And I think as time goes on a little further, when some other things just start to get a little worse, and when a lot of people really recognize, like, man, I didn't used to think there was a lot of this stuff going on. Now there's some problems, and man, I'm getting nervous. When that time comes, I'm going to read you one of the first things I found when I was starting to wake up. And I never could really believe it, but it always stuck with me. Time traveler by the name of John Titor, Titor. If you just read what he says, knowing that this thing has been proven to be absolutely written in around the year 2000, in the very beginning of 2001, and that's when he said he left, never heard from him again. I know it sounds absurd, but again, I found it. I'm not saying I sat here and believed it the whole time. But if you just go and read the John Titor story, what he said was coming, what he said was going to happen to America. Back in the year 2000, this is before 9/11, this is before the Patriot Act, this is before the National Defense Authorization Act, this is before all of these things, the war in the Middle East. He said all of these things before that time. You know how absurd that would have sounded back then. And if you read the actual web comments that I know you can find on the internet, I still have a copy on my computer. People are kind of making fun of them and saying, stuff. But some people actually thought it was interesting and said, I'll play devil's advocate. Let me just go on with this. And some of the interesting things he talked about, he gets into GMO crops and food and all that stuff. Back in 2000, 2001. Who was talking about GMOs hardly back? You know what I mean? Anyways, it's going to be a little while before I reread the John Titor story. But just think of it when I do read it, or if you want to go read it online now, you can, but you'll find bits and pieces of it. I have like the full conversation saved in an email somewhere on my computer. And it is just so interesting that everything he started talking about is like, man, I know he said it would be here before now, like right now, even the years he even gave. But oh my God, it's really starting to make sense what he said was coming. But we're not going to go there right now. We're going to have to wait on that. Take care.